"So sorry to upstage your cute little degree," Brittany whispered, her perfectly glossed lips brushing against my ear. She gave me a quick, one-armed hug, her other hand instinctively resting on her perfectly flat stomach. The words were a venomous hiss, lost to everyone else in the explosion of camera flashes that now surrounded us. My graduation party, the event I had spent months planning down to the last detail, had just been hijacked and transformed into her spontaneous pregnancy reveal. I was left standing there, frozen like a statue in my cap and gown, the leather case holding my diploma gripped so tightly my knuckles turned white. In an instant, my father, Robert, and my stepmother, Brenda, were rushing past me. Their faces were alight with a joy I had never once inspired in them as they moved to envelop their precious daughter. My own monumental achievement, graduating summa cum laude in computational biology, simply vanished. It was like fog burning off in the harsh glare of Brittany's flawlessly executed announcement. This was not the first time she had eclipsed me, not by a long shot. It was merely the most soul-crushing. Growing up, my entire world was built around academics. While other kids were out playing tag or going to the mall after school, I was inside, memorizing the periodic table and solving calculus problems for fun. When other teenagers were sneaking out to parties or worried about prom, I was preparing for the National Science Olympiad. My whole identity was forged in the heat of scholarly excellence. Part of that was because I have a genuine passion for learning, but mostly it was because it was the one and only arena where Brittany could not possibly compete with me. My stepsister was a master of a currency far more valued in our household: social performance. She had an innate sense of when to laugh, what outfit to wear for maximum effect, and how to flatter people into feeling like they were the most important person in the room. She had perfected the art of being the center of gravity at any gathering by the time she was 12. That happened to be the year her mother married my father, and our lives became inextricably, and for me, miserably, intertwined. I remember the day they moved in with crystal clarity. I was in the living room carefully arranging my science fair project for the state finals the next day. It was a complex working model of a microgrid powered by renewable energy, a project that had already won the regional prize. My father had promised, pinky swore, that he would help me transport its delicate components to the competition in the morning. "Daddy, look what I made." Brittany's voice chirped from the doorway. She held up a simple, almost crude, watercolor painting of our newly formed blended family. Brenda cooed about her daughter's budding artistic genius, and my father, who had barely glanced at my intricate model, immediately took the painting and gave it the place of honor on the refrigerator. The next morning, he had completely forgotten his promise. My project made it to the competition in the back of my physics teacher's old minivan. That single event set the tone for the rest of our lives. Through middle school and high school, the pattern was relentless. My straight A's and academic awards were met with a distracted, perfunctory, "That is nice, honey," while Brittany's C+ average was celebrated as if she had single-handedly discovered a cure for a major disease. My acceptance letter to a top-tier university earned me a quiet dinner at a local chain restaurant. Brittany's acceptance to a local community college, however, was cause for a massive backyard barbecue with 50 guests and a rented bouncy castle. It was as if my successes were expected and therefore boring, while her mediocrity was a miracle. Earth to Maya? A familiar voice snapped me out of my bitter trip down memory lane. I blinked, startled to find myself back in my own kitchen, staring at a stack of graduation party invitations I had been about to mail. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. The voice belonged to Tyler, Brittany's fiancé, and once upon a very long time ago, my best friend in the entire world. "Sorry," I mumbled, setting the mug down on the counter. I just zoned out for a second. Tyler leaned against my counter, his presence in my small apartment still feeling both surprising and not entirely unwelcome. He had stopped by to get a box of old family photos Brittany wanted for a slideshow at their wedding. Since their engagement a year ago, he had become a fixture at family events, but this was the first time he had ever come to my place by himself. "Getting excited for the big day?" he asked, nodding his head toward the invitations on the table. As excited as one can be about 4 years of non-stop, brutal work finally being over, I replied, trying to conjure a smile that felt hollow on my face. Tyler studied me with that intense gaze of his, the one that always made me feel like he could see right through the carefully constructed walls I had built around myself. It was the same look he would give me when we were kids, before Brittany became the center of his universe, before everything got so complicated. "Your dad is really proud of you, you know," he said softly. "He talks about his brilliant daughter all the time." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "To whom? He certainly does not talk about it to me." Tyler shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "He was telling me about your thesis project just last week, the one about predictive modeling for genetic disorders." A tiny flicker of warmth sparked in my chest, but it was just as quickly extinguished by a familiar wave of cynicism. Let me guess, was Brittany in the room when he said it? Tyler's silence was all the confirmation I needed. My father only seemed to acknowledge my existence when he could use my achievements to look good in front of Brittany's fiancé. He and I had been inseparable as kids. We lived next door, built elaborate forts in the woods behind our houses, shared every secret, and dreamed of exploring the world together. Then came high school, his family moved across town, and Brittany made it her personal mission to ensure our paths diverged. She wove herself into his life so completely that by the time I left for college, he was firmly in her orbit. Their engagement announcement last year had stung in a way I could not even admit to myself. It felt like the final piece of my childhood had been stolen and repurposed for her benefit. "I like what you have done with this place," Tyler said, clearly desperate to change the subject. He glanced around my small but meticulously organized apartment. "It is very you." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" I asked, only half joking. "Definitely a good thing," he answered, and his eyes met mine with an intensity that sent a jolt right through me. "It is nice to see pieces of the real Maya. Sometimes I feel like you just vanished." The words hung in the air between us, thick with years of unspoken history. For a split second, I saw the boy who used to know me better than I knew myself. "The real Maya has been here the whole time," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Just buried under a mountain of textbooks and research papers, Tyler took a step closer, his gaze searching my face. "I miss her," he confessed. "The girl who used to teach me the constellations, the one who argued with our 6th grade teacher about the Cretaceous period." "That girl had to grow up," I replied, my throat suddenly tight. "She had to. Did she? Or did she just go into hiding?" Before I could form an answer, his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Brittany's custom ringtone, a pop song I absolutely despised, filled the small kitchen. Tyler stepped back, the connection broken as he glanced at his screen. "I have to go," he said, his tone suddenly clipped and businesslike. "Brittany needs me to pick up her dress from the tailor." He grabbed the box of photos I had left on the counter for him. "Thanks for these. And hey, I am seriously looking forward to your party. It is going to be great." As he walked to the door, he paused, his hand on the knob. "For what it is worth, Maya, I see you. The real you. I always have." The door clicked shut, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the bewildering echo of a feeling I thought had died long ago, a feeling that felt a lot like hope and was therefore incredibly dangerous. What I did not know, could not possibly have known at that moment, was that this short, unexpected conversation was the first domino to fall in a chain reaction that would change all of our lives. That in just 3 short months, I would be the one walking into a party on Tyler's arm, as his wife, ready to deliver the final shocking act in a melodrama my stepsister had so foolishly written herself. But on that particular afternoon, all I felt was a profound confusion and the tiniest, most treacherous flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, after all these years of living in Brittany's shadow, someone still remembered who I truly was. 3 weeks after Tyler's visit, my graduation day dawned bright and clear. For the first time in what felt like forever, everything was going perfectly. The commencement ceremony was mercifully short, my name was pronounced correctly, and my handshake with the university chancellor was firm and satisfying. I had even seen my father stand up and applaud when I crossed the stage, a gesture so uncharacteristic it almost made me trip on my way back to my seat. The party that followed, held at my father and Brenda's sprawling suburban home, was even better than I had allowed myself to hope for. The backyard was a vision of white tents, twinkling fairy lights, and tasteful decorations in my university's colors of blue and silver. A massive banner that read, "Congratulations, Maya," was stretched across the back porch. For the first time in my entire life, this day, this celebration, felt unequivocally, undeniably mine. "Speech! Speech!" someone shouted as I moved through the crowd, my diploma holder tucked securely under my arm. My father came over and handed me a glass of champagne, gently steering me toward a small wooden platform they had set up near the rose garden. "I am not really prepared for this," I started to protest, but he squeezed my shoulder. "Just speak from the heart, kiddo," he said, using an old nickname that made my eyes sting. Standing there, before the assembled crowd of my professors, classmates, family, and friends, I felt a surge of confidence that was entirely new to me. "Thank you all so much for being here today," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "This degree represents thousands of hours of studying, hundreds of sleepless nights, and probably more caffeine than any single person should consume in a lifetime." A wave of gentle laughter spread through the audience. Brenda was beaming at me from beside the cake table. Even my notoriously grumpy grandfather, who had complained about the drive from his retirement home, gave me an approving nod. "I could not be standing here without the incredible support of so many of you in this garden," I continued, making brief eye contact with my thesis advisor, my freshman year roommate who had become my closest friend, and then finally my father. "Dad, thank you for... Oh my God, I cannot hold it in another second." The high-pitched shriek sliced through my speech like a hot knife. Every single head swiveled towards the patio doors. There stood Brittany, looking absolutely radiant in a pale pink dress that seemed deliberately chosen to highlight her slim figure. Tyler was right behind her, his face a mask of confusing emotions as Brittany grabbed his hand and pulled him forward into the spotlight that had, moments before, been mine. "Tyler and I have a little announcement to make," she trilled, her free hand moving to rest on her abdomen in that universal, unmistakable gesture. "We are pregnant. You are all going to be aunts and uncles and grandparents." The stunned silence lasted for exactly 2 seconds before the yard erupted into absolute bedlam. Brenda shrieked with pure delight and rushed toward her daughter. My father's face broke into a grin of such ecstatic joy, a look I had never once seen directed at me. My guests, my own friends and professors, abandoned their places and converged around Brittany and Tyler like iron filings to a powerful magnet. I was left frozen on the platform, the champagne glass dangling from my suddenly numb fingers, my unfinished speech withering on my tongue. No one noticed. No one cared that I was still standing there. No one, that is, except Tyler. His eyes met mine over the heads of the cheering crowd, and his expression was a chaotic mix of apology, panic, and deep regret. The look lasted only a moment before Brittany yanked his face down for a dramatic kiss, severing our silent connection. Slowly, I stepped down from the platform. The crowd had organically split the yard into 2 distinct zones: the vibrant, ecstatic mob clustered around Brittany near the house, and the desolate, abandoned party space with its now mocking decorations celebrating my defunct achievement. I retreated to the farthest corner of the yard, leaning against the sturdy trunk of an old oak tree that had been my sanctuary since childhood. From that vantage point, I watched the scene unfold with a cold, detached numbness. I saw my father raise a toast to his future grandchild. I saw Brenda already on her phone, no doubt broadcasting the news to every person in her contact list. And I saw Tyler, standing rigidly beside Brittany, his smile plastered on, but never quite reaching his eyes as he accepted slaps on the back and congratulatory handshakes. She certainly has a flair for the dramatic, does she not? The voice belonged to Mrs. Gable, my late mother's best friend. She was one of the few remaining links to my mom, and she had remained a part of my life despite the awkwardness her presence sometimes created at these family functions. Impeccable timing, as always, I replied, the bitterness in my voice impossible to hide. Mrs. Gable took a sip of her wine, her sharp, intelligent eyes fixed on Brittany. You know, in all my years as a high school drama teacher, I have rarely encountered a student who commits to a role so completely. What is that supposed to mean? I asked. Just an observation, Mrs. Gable said, choosing her words carefully. Brittany reminds me of my star pupil from a few years back. A brilliant actress, utterly convincing on stage. Off stage, well, let us just say the audience only ever saw what she wanted them to see. I watched Brittany across the yard. She was crying now, but they were delicate, photogenic tears that did not smudge her perfect makeup. One hand was pressed to her heart, the other still clutching Tyler's arm. The timing of every gesture, every glance, seemed meticulously choreographed. Tyler does not exactly look like an overjoyed father-to-be, Mrs. Gable observed quietly. She was right. While everyone else buzzed with excitement, Tyler stood there with the stiff posture of a man enduring a public trial, not celebrating a joyous milestone. When Brenda threw her arms around him in a hug, his own arms stayed limp at his sides for several long seconds before he remembered to pat her back. "Did you know about this?" I asked Mrs. Gable. "About the baby? Or about the trouble in paradise?" She countered. "Let us just say I ran into Tyler at the pharmacy last week. He was buying a giant bottle of antacids and looked like he had not slept in a month." She patted my arm gently. "Not everyone is as good at keeping up appearances as your stepsister, Maya." Before I could ask more, Brittany detached herself from her adoring fans and glided towards us, her face a perfect mask of radiant bliss. Tyler trailed a few steps behind her, his own expression now carefully, painfully neutral. "Maya," she cried, wrapping me in that chilling, one-armed embrace, "is this not just the most wonderful day? Your graduation and our baby announcement." Her voice was syrupy sweet, pitched just loud enough for anyone nearby to overhear. Then she leaned in, her lips close to my ear, and delivered those cutting words. "So sorry to steal the show." As she pulled back, her smile never wavered, but in that instant I saw something new in her eyes. It was a cold, hard calculation, a full awareness of the precise cruelty she was inflicting. "Congratulations," I managed to say, the word tasting like ash. "That is wonderful news." Brittany turned and floated back toward her court, tugging Tyler along with her. But as they walked away, I saw him glance back at me, his face unguarded for a fraction of a second. And what I saw there was not joy or pride. It was pure, unadulterated desperation. 2 weeks after the graduation party catastrophe, I found my refuge at the Daily Grind, a small, independent coffee shop tucked away on a side street downtown. It had been my sanctuary throughout college, a place where I was anonymous, where no one knew me as Brittany's less interesting stepsister. The baristas knew my order, a large black coffee, no room for cream, and the worn-out leather armchair in the back corner felt more like home than my own apartment. I was deep into revising my resume for a job application when the little bell above the door chimed. I glanced up out of habit and immediately tried to hide behind my laptop screen. It was Tyler. He was standing at the counter, with dark circles under his eyes and his hair uncombed. He looked nothing like the polished, successful architect who was always by Brittany's side. "Make it a double," he told the barista, his voice strained and tired. "Actually, a triple." Is that a thing? I seriously considered making a run for the back exit, but before I could move, he turned and our eyes met. Surprise flickered across his face, quickly followed by something that looked unnervingly like relief. "Maya," he said, walking over to my table. "Mind if I join you?" I hesitated for a moment, then moved my backpack from the other chair. "Rough morning?" I asked. "Rough life," he corrected, slumping into the seat. Up close, his exhaustion was palpable. "Brittany's morning sickness is a modern medical mystery," he said, the bitter edge in his voice startling me. "It only seems to flare up when she wants out of a family obligation or needs a dose of sympathy. But it miraculously vanishes the second her friends text about going for brunch. I had never heard him speak about her with anything less than glowing admiration. Can you even drink mimosas when you are pregnant?" I asked, genuinely curious. Tyler's laugh was harsh and empty. That is what I asked. Apparently, questioning her makes me an unsupportive, toxic partner. He rubbed his temples with his fingertips. "Sorry, I should not be dumping all this on you." "It is fine," I said, and was surprised to find that I actually meant it. Sometimes it is easier to talk to someone who is not in the middle of it all. We fell into conversation easily, more naturally than I could have ever predicted. We talked about my job search, his latest building design, and we even laughed, reminiscing about the elaborate treehouse he had designed for us when we were 12. Its first blueprint, drawn on graph paper, he had swiped from his dad's briefcase. That first, accidental meeting evolved into a regular Tuesday morning ritual. Each week, Tyler would show up looking more haggard than the last, and each week, he would let another piece of the puzzle slip, chipping away at the perfect facade of his life with Brittany. "She told her mother the baby is due in January," he mentioned during our third coffee date. "But she told my parents it is March. When I asked her about the discrepancy, she just laughed it off and blamed pregnancy brain." By our fifth meeting, his casual venting had morphed into genuine, deep-seated concern. "The timeline just does not make sense, Maya," he confided, his voice low, even though the cafe was nearly empty. "Based on when she says we conceived, she should be showing more by now. Her doctor wants to do another ultrasound because the initial measurements seem off. Maybe it is just a small baby," I suggested, trying to be objective despite the growing pit in my stomach. "Maybe," Tyler said, staring into his cup as if the answer was written in the dregs of his espresso. "Or maybe there's another reason." I did not push him to explain. A part of me did not want to know, did not want to be dragged any deeper into the inevitable implosion of their relationship. But another part, the part that remembered the boy who had shared all his secrets with me, could not stand to see him so lost and tormented. During our sixth meeting, Tyler arrived looking grim, clutching a large manila envelope. "I found this in Brittany's desk," he said, sliding it across the table toward me. "I was looking for a postage stamp." His voice trailed off as he gestured for me to open it. Inside was a file of medical records. Brittany's name was printed in bold at the top of each page. I felt a pang of guilt. "Tyler, I should not be looking at this. This is her private—" "Just look at the dates, Maya. Please, just look at the dates." I scanned the documents, my eyes catching on a note from a gynecological visit 4 months prior. The doctor's notes mentioned a discussion about fertility options and a prescription for prenatal vitamins. 4 months ago. 4 months ago, Brittany had been on a girls' trip to Cabo, a trip Tyler had pointedly not been invited on. "She told me she got pregnant during our weekend trip to the mountains," Tyler said, his voice hollow. "That was 6 weeks ago." My stomach churned. "This could just be preparation," I offered weakly. "Maybe she was just planning ahead, wanted to be healthy before you started trying." Tyler then pulled a single sheet of paper from the envelope. It was a lab report. "This is from 3 months ago," he said, his finger shaking as he pointed to a specific line. "HCG levels, consistent with early-stage pregnancy." The implication was a physical blow, sucking the air from my lungs. If Brittany was pregnant 3 months ago, there was no possible way Tyler could be the father. "I do not understand," I said, my mind reeling. "Why would she lie? Why not just tell you?" Tyler's laugh was brittle and sharp, because she was not sure I would stick around. We were fighting constantly before that mountain trip. I was on the verge of calling off the engagement. His hands trembled as he stuffed the papers back into the envelope. The pregnancy announcement was a trap. It locked me in. She knew exactly what she was doing at your graduation party. It was not just about stealing your moment, Maya. It was about making a public spectacle, a declaration that would make it impossible for me to back out without looking like the world's biggest monster. My mind raced, trying to process the sheer audacity of her deception. Who? I mean, do you have any idea who the father might be? "I have my suspicions," Tyler said, his jaw tight. Her ex, Justin, has been texting her nonstop. She claims it is about some joint investment they made, but the messages I have seen, they are not about business. We sat in a heavy silence, the weight of his discovery pressing down on the small table between us. Finally, I reached out and took his hand. The simple gesture felt both strange and deeply familiar, like coming home after a long, long time away. "What are you going to do?" I asked quietly. Tyler's eyes, clear and resolute despite his pain, met mine. "First, I need to get absolute, undeniable proof." He squeezed my hand. "And then I need to figure out how to get my life back, a real life. One that is mine, not some role I am playing in her production. I have spent years living Brittany's version of my life. I barely recognize myself anymore. In that moment, something profound shifted between us. It was a reconnection to the deep friendship we had lost, but it was layered with something new, something more, something neither of us was ready to name. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for being someone I can trust, for just being real, in a way she has never been." As we left the coffee shop that day, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief for Tyler, who was finally seeing the truth, and for the rekindling of our own bond, but also a heavy dread for the storm that was about to break over all of us. The carefully constructed world my stepfamily lived in was cracking at its foundations, and I knew that when it finally came crashing down, none of us would be left unscathed. For a full week after Tyler showed me the damning medical records, I was tormented by my conscience. I would lie awake at night, caught in a loop, debating my role in the chaos that was brewing. Was I a loyal friend, helping Tyler uncover a devastating truth he had a right to know? Or was I a vengeful stepsister, gleefully enabling the destruction of my family's precarious peace? The line between justice and revenge became hopelessly blurred every time I replayed Brittany's cruel whisper in my ear at the party. I had just walked in the door after a long day at my new lab job when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tyler. "Can you meet? It is important." We met at a secluded bench in Riverwalk Park, neutral ground far from the prying eyes of coffee shops or family. Tyler was pacing back and forth, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "I confronted her," he said, his voice raw, skipping any preamble. My stomach clenched. "What happened?" "Exactly what you would predict," he said, finally sinking onto the bench beside me, his shoulders slumped in defeat. First came the denials, then the gaslighting. Then, when I laid out the paperwork, she switched to tears and accusations. He let out a long, ragged breath. "She admitted it, Maya. The baby is not mine. It is Justin's." Even though I had known it was coming, hearing the words spoken aloud sent a jolt through me. "Oh, Tyler, I'm so sorry." "She begged me not to tell anyone," he continued, his voice laced with disbelief. "She said we could raise the baby as ours, that it could be our secret, that no one ever had to know." His laugh was hollow. When I refused, she threatened me. She said she would tell everyone I cheated on her, that I was emotionally abusive. She swore she would ruin my reputation, make sure I lost my partnership at the firm. "She would not," I whispered, even though we both knew that she absolutely would. "She already started," Tyler said, holding up his phone. On the screen was a group chat with his closest friends. The messages from Brittany were sickeningly plausible. painting a picture of a controlling, unstable Tyler who had abandoned his pregnant, vulnerable fiancée. This is just the beginning. The next 24 hours were a dizzying, nightmarish blur. Tyler checked into a hotel and Brittany launched a full-scale offensive. She called every family member, spinning her carefully crafted tale of heartbreak and betrayal. My father called me, his voice trembling with rage, demanding to know what lies I had been feeding Tyler about his perfect stepsister. When I tried to explain the situation, he hung up on me. By that evening, the battle lines were starkly drawn. The majority of the family, swayed by her performance, rallied around Brittany, the tragic abandoned mother-to-be. Only Mrs. Gable stood firmly in Tyler's corner, and to my own surprise, so did I. "I need concrete proof, Maya," Tyler said when we spoke on the phone that night, his voice desperate. "Something she cannot twist or deny." "What about the medical records?" I asked. "She is claiming they were misdated, that her doctor's office made a clerical error." I thought for a moment, my mind racing. Her phone. The texts from Justin have to be on her phone. She never lets that thing out of her sight. Tyler sighed. She literally takes it into the shower with her. Then an idea sparked. "The cloud backup," I said suddenly. "Does she ever use your laptop? Sometimes, when hers is dead, and you share an Apple ID for family purchases, right?" Tyler's breath hitched as he understood what I was getting at. Her messages, they would be synced to the cloud. The next morning, he forwarded me the screenshots. There were dozens of them, messages between Brittany and Justin that went back for months, well before her supposed conception date with Tyler. They continued through her Cabo trip and even after my graduation party. The most damning exchange was a text from Justin asking when she was going to tell Tyler the truth. Her reply was chillingly pragmatic. "Never. Tyler is stable, reliable, the perfect father figure. What he does not know will not hurt him." Armed with this irrefutable proof, Tyler arranged another confrontation. This time, it was at my apartment, with me as a witness. Brittany arrived looking every bit the maternal martyr, dressed in a flowing white dress, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. "This little intervention is ridiculous," she began, settling onto my couch as if she owned the place. "I am under enough stress as it is." Without a word, Tyler handed her the stack of printed screenshots. I watched her face cycle through a rapid series of emotions. Confusion, then dawning horror, then pure, calculated fury. "You went through my phone," she hissed. "This is an invasion of my privacy. It is illegal. I could have you arrested." "Go ahead," Tyler replied, his voice eerily calm. "You can explain to the judge why you were plotting to trick me into raising another man's child." What followed was the most venomous, unhinged version of Brittany I had ever seen. She threatened, she pleaded, she tried every manipulative trick in her extensive playbook. When nothing worked, she rounded on me. "You have always been jealous of me," she spat, her face contorted with rage. "Always wanting what I have. This is just your sad, pathetic little attempt to steal my life." "No, Brittany," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "This is about truth, something you have never had much respect for." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, promising to bring down hellfire on us both. True to her word, my phone began to explode within the hour. Vicious texts from my cousins called me a homewrecker. My father left a furious voicemail demanding I issue a public apology to Brittany. The only person I did not hear from was my stepmother, Brenda, a silence I interpreted as profound disappointment. Then, unexpectedly, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, Brenda was standing on my doorstep, looking fragile and older than I had ever seen her. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice soft. Warily, I stepped aside. She did not sit on the couch, but perched on the edge of an armchair, her hands twisting in her lap. "I received some very disturbing messages today," she began, "about you and Tyler conspiring against Brittany." "It is not like that," I started, but she held up a hand to stop me. "I know," she said simply. "I have always known who my daughter is." The admission left me speechless. Brittany has been manipulating people since she was old enough to talk, Brenda continued, her voice steady despite the tears welling in her eyes. I tried everything. Therapy, discipline, endless heart-to-heart talks. Nothing ever worked. By the time she was a teenager, I had to accept a terrible truth. She simply lacks the part of her that allows for empathy. She looked at me then, her gaze direct and full of a sorrow that seemed ancient. I saw how she treated you all those years. I saw how she systematically overshadowed your every single accomplishment. I should have done more. I should have been stronger, and for that, I am so sorry. You believe us? About the baby? I asked, barely daring to hope. Brenda nodded. I suspected her timeline was off from the beginning, and to be perfectly honest, I have never seen a genuine connection between her and Tyler. Not the way you two used to have. Before she got between you, her support was the key that unlocked everything. With Brenda on our side, we gathered the family for a final, painful meeting. We presented the evidence. Not everyone was convinced at first, but enough doubt was sown to completely dismantle Brittany's narrative. When confronted by Tyler, Justin admitted everything, even offering to take a paternity test. In the chaotic aftermath, Tyler and I found ourselves clinging to each other. What had started as an alliance born of crisis, slowly, naturally, evolved into something much deeper. We were cautious, both hyper-aware of how our budding relationship would look to the outside world, but there was an undeniable magnetic rightness to being together, like finally finding a path we were always meant to be on. I have wasted so much of my life living someone else's script, Tyler told me one evening as we walked along the river. I do not want to waste another second. When he leaned in and kissed me for the first time, it did not feel scandalous or rushed. It felt like the most honest and inevitable moment of my life. 2 weeks later, in a quiet courthouse ceremony with only Mrs. Gable and Brenda as our witnesses, we were married. No grand pronouncements, no dramatic performances. Just a simple, authentic promise between two people who had found their way back to each other. Ready to face whatever comes next? Tyler asked as we signed the marriage certificate. Looking into his eyes, I knew that whatever storms Brittany might still conjure, we would face them together. Absolutely, I said. I am ready. 3 months after my graduation party, almost to the exact day, Tyler and I stood hand in hand on the sidewalk outside my father's house. The lawn was a sea of pink and blue balloons, and a large banner that read, "It is a shower for Brittany," was strung across the front porch. Despite the hurricane of drama that had ripped through our family, Brenda had insisted on going through with the baby's shower. Her reasons, I was beginning to understand, were far more complex than simple maternal obligation. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Tyler asked, his new wedding band glinting in the afternoon sun as he squeezed my hand. I took a deep, steadying breath. Completely sure. We had not intended to make a grand, dramatic entrance. In fact, we had not intended to come at all. Our quiet courthouse wedding 2 weeks prior had been followed by a spontaneous honeymoon in a secluded lakeside cabin, a deliberate retreat from the fallout we knew was waiting for us. But a call from Brenda the day before had changed our plans. "Brittany is telling everyone you abandoned her because you found out about a minor pregnancy complication," she had explained, her voice strained. "She is claiming you seduced Tyler in his moment of weakness, Maya. The story is getting more and more elaborate. It is time to end this cycle, for all of our sakes." So there we were, about to walk into a party where nearly every guest believed we were the villains. Tyler squared his shoulders. "Let us do this." The collective gasp that swept through the living room as we stepped inside was almost comical. Conversations died mid-sentence. Cups of pastel-colored punch froze halfway to lips. In the center of the room, seated on a throne-like wicker chair, was Brittany. She was opening a gift, an impressive baby bump visible beneath her maternity dress. Her eyes widened when she saw us, then narrowed into slits of pure venom. "What are you two doing here?" she hissed, her voice loud enough to carry across the suddenly silent room. Brenda stepped forward from the buffet table. "I invited them, Brittany. This has gone on long enough." "You invited them?" Brittany's voice rose to a near shriek. "After what they did to me? After he abandoned me and his child?" Tyler's grip on my hand tightened, but his voice, when he spoke, was steady and calm. "I cannot abandon a child that is not mine, Brittany." The room exploded in a flurry of whispers. My father, his face flushed with anger, took a step toward us. "Now you listen here." "Dad," I interrupted, my voice ringing with a confidence I did not know I possessed. "There is documented proof. Medical records that show Brittany was pregnant months before the weekend she claimed she conceived with Tyler. There are text messages between her and the actual father. There are DNA test results." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. We have tried repeatedly to handle this privately, but Brittany refuses to stop spreading these lies. Brittany struggled to her feet, one hand on her belly. "These are insane accusations. I have a rare medical condition that made the dates seem off. My doctor can confirm it." "Your doctor already confirmed the opposite," Brenda interjected quietly. "I spoke with Dr. Evans myself." The look of pure betrayal Brittany shot at her own mother was terrifying. But why? My Aunt Carol, who had always doted on Brittany, asked in a quavering voice, "Why lie about something so fundamental?" Brittany's carefully constructed composure finally began to shatter. "You do not understand. Tyler was going to leave me. I had to do something. I needed to trap me." Tyler finished for her. "But it was not just about the baby, was it, Brittany? Why do you not tell them about the credit cards?" This was news even to me. I shot Tyler a questioning look. Brittany's face went completely pale as Brenda cleared her throat. I discovered several credit card statements addressed to Tyler, accounts he never opened. There were over $60,000 in charges for designer clothes, spa treatments, and weekend getaways with... She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. "Identity theft," Tyler explained to the stunned room. "That, along with reproductive coercion, that is why we are here, not for revenge. We are here to stop the lies before they destroy anyone else." Brittany's facade did not just crack, it disintegrated. "You think you are so perfect, do you not?" she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Little Miss Summa Cum Laude with your useless degree and your self-righteous attitude. You have always been jealous of me. You have always wanted everything I had." "That is not true, Brittany," I said softly. "I never wanted what you had. I just wanted to be seen for who I am." Just then the doorbell rang, cutting through the tense atmosphere. Brenda moved to answer it, returning a moment later with an unexpected guest, Justin, Brittany's ex-boyfriend, and, as the room now knew, the father of her unborn child. "Sorry I'm late," he said awkwardly, looking around at the frozen tableau. I got your text, Brittany." "I did not text you," she snapped, panic flooding her eyes. Justin looked confused. "Yeah, you did. You said you were finally telling everyone the truth, and you wanted me here for support." He held up his phone, showing a text that had clearly been sent from her number. All eyes swiveled to Brenda, who calmly held up Brittany's phone from where it had been left on a side table. "I sent it," she admitted. "It was time for complete and total honesty." What followed was messy, painful, and absolutely necessary. Justin, who had also been victimized by Brittany's web of lies, revealed how she had secretly continued their relationship while she was engaged to Tyler. He explained how she had told him the baby was Tyler's, only to change her story when Tyler started pulling away. One by one, the guests began to file out, muttering excuses and avoiding eye contact. Soon, only the main players were left. Brittany was sobbing on her wicker throne. Justin sat uncomfortably across from her. My father and Brenda stood together by the fireplace, and Tyler and I stood by the door. "What happens now?" my father finally asked, his voice small and broken. "Now," Brenda said firmly, "we get Brittany the professional help she so desperately needs. Therapy, accountability, real, actual consequences." "And the baby?" Justin asked. "We do right by this child," Tyler said, his voice full of a surprising grace. "Whatever our feelings are, an innocent baby does not deserve to suffer for any of this." In that moment, watching the fractured pieces of our family begin the long, arduous process of finding their way back to honesty, I realized something profound. The sweet revenge I had imagined, walking into Brittany's party and turning the tables on her, had become something else entirely. It was not an act of spite. It was an act of truth. It was not an ending, it was a beginning. 6 months later, Tyler and I hosted a small dinner party at our new apartment. Brenda was there, and so was my father, who was tentatively, awkwardly, trying to rebuild a relationship with me. Mrs. Gable came and brought her famous apple pie, and surprisingly, Brittany was there too. She was noticeably humbled, changed by the early days of motherhood and the court-mandated therapy she was attending as part of her plea agreement for the identity theft. Her son, just 2 months old, slept peacefully in a bassinet in the corner, while Justin, who was taking his co-parenting duties with unexpected seriousness, checked on him periodically. "He has your eyes," I told Brittany during a quiet moment in the kitchen. She looked at me for a long time. "I am trying, Maya," she said, her voice soft, "to be better. It does not come naturally to me, but I am trying." It was not an apology, and it was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. It was a step towards something real, something neither of us had ever known before. Later that evening, as Tyler wrapped his arm around my waist, he whispered in my ear, "Who would have thought your graduation party would lead to all of this?" I leaned my head against his shoulder, watching my complicated, messy, imperfect family try to build something new from the ashes of so many lies. "Sometimes," I replied, "the truth is the only revenge that matters." End of story.